And we're back with another episode of the Draft Academy Premier League podcast. I'm Ryan Leibsville, joined by Jared Angel. What's happening, bro?
What's going on, Leibs? Another exciting game week.
Yeah, smiling after that Manchester derby, not going to lie.
No, I don't think we could be in opposite situations.
No one can convince me that that's not offside, but I couldn't care one little bit.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with the United fans this weekend, just getting to the argument for the sake of it, because it's so easy to argue for both sides. So, but the United fans are getting very heated about it. So I'm actually going to compliment you for being the one who uses a bit of logic with no tinted glasses there. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't really know how you can go ahead and say that he's not affecting play. But anyways.
Yeah, 100%. So Ange, we are going into game week 21, this upcoming game week, right?
Sure.
So we're just over the halfway mark in the season. What I just want to go through quickly is, if you could trade, like, who do you think are the strongest players going into the second half of the season? If you could trade for anyone, except for Haaland, because obviously like, Haaland's untradeable, right? Like, what you would have to get up to get someone to trade you for that is just, I don't think it's possible. Right? So, in terms of those
Trippier is as untradeable as Haaland right now. 13 points difference in fantasy.
I don't think so. I think you could get Trippier with a tasty midfielder and a good defender. I think you could probably tempt someone into him. But you got to have, like, it's got to be a real offer. It's got to be a real strong offer.
Sure.
I mean, I'd agree with you. Trippier would be top of my trade list if I felt I could get him. If I looked at my team and I think there was some merit to, he would 100% be my number one defender to hold for the rest of the season. I mean, I think that goes without saying. Like you said, I think he's on record to break Robbo's highest scoring season for him back.
And he probably will, provided Newcastle keep this up.
Yeah. And like, it looks like they will, honestly. It really does look like they will. But it is quite interesting, right? Because like, if you look at Newcastle's team, I back them to carry on playing the way they've been playing. Like, Wilson is probably tradable. I don't think you can trade for Isaac now, because whoever's got him has held him for a while, unless they just picked him up on the waiver wire recently. Like, if they've held him, they're not going to trade him, especially after his goal. So Callum Wilson's maybe a more realistic transfer option to try and trade for. Guimaraes hasn't been that good. Well, he hasn't been that good from a fancy perspective. Almiron, and still playing well, so he's blanked his last three. Still playing well, so he could be a good, nice trade option. Like, I do think Newcastle, like, they look like they're going to keep going this way for the rest of the season. If like the defenders are very interesting tradable assets, right? Because if you're holding like a Botman, I think that could be quite easily like tangled off you for an interesting midfield option.
So from my perspective, I actually hold a Newcastle defender. So I got Dan Burn. I've held him for a while. And I'm just trying to think, like, it would actually take quite a bit for me to drop him at the moment. He's like a 6 points machine, every game week almost. I think Newcastle do still hold the best defensive record in the Premier League currently. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it would take quite a bit to get Dan Burn off my hands.
Interesting. That's interesting. Who else do you think is like, because it is interesting that since the World Cup, there's been a couple of players who have really grabbed a place that didn't seem likely before the World Cup happened, like Grealish, looking very solid on that Man City left. Rashford's looked amazing. Like, who do you think is going to keep that run going, and who do you think is just benefiting from a bit of World Cup restart energy?
Look, I think Grealish will keep that going. I think he's been finally living up to probably what a lot of United fans have been hoping he would be for the last few years. So I think he can keep that energy up, provided United can, and I don't see why they wouldn't. City's a tricky one, KDB is safe, and he'll always play just because of who he is. Haaland and the goalkeeper. Outside of that, I don't know which City assets are safe to say I'm happy because he's going to play consecutive games.
Yeah.
Liverpool assets all over the place right now. You don't know what you're going to get. Chelsea, the same story. Maybe from the smaller teams.
Adam's been playing well recently.
Shea Adams, Ivan Toney. You also don't know what's going to happen with this ban. Is it going to happen this season? Is it going to happen next season? At what point? So how risky is a trade there? Maybe you can use that as a reason to try and get a trade, and that thing just gets delayed through to the end of the season. Arsenal's probably a great example because there's a few there. I mean, Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli.
Do you think you could get those players, though? Do you think you could get those players, though? If you looked at your team now, do you think realistically you could come up with any kind of offer that would justify trying to trade for those guys?
I would have to make an offer I wouldn't want to make.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it would be too risky for me to give up the players that I would need to give up because it's going to be more. I would probably, and I don't even know if it would be accepted. I'd probably have to do like a Foden and a Trent to even try get a sniff at Saka now. And I do not even know if the Saka owner would accept something like that.
Yeah, I want to ask you an interesting question. I'm very curious to see how this is going to go. If you held Salah and I offered you Rashford, would you take that trade?
No.
No.
It's probably because I'm a Liverpool fan. And I do believe that we will get a little bit better this season. And even though we've been terrible, Salah is still scoring goals. Is Rashford a midfielder or a defender?
He's a midfielder.
Listed.
You mean he's striker?
Okay, so it's got that equal.
Yeah.
Rashford always, the only thing that worries me about Rashford is, 18, 19 games left of the season. Does he stay fit for all of them? We've seen through the years, he picks up these injuries now and then. So that would play a part in my decision on that trade. Is Rashford currently taking penalties for United?
We don't know, but I think we can assume it's probably Bruno. Like, why wouldn't it be Bruno?
So that would probably also play a bit of a role for me in terms that Salah does take the penalties. So many, many, many other players, I would say yes. Salah, I would say I'd probably hold Salah for now.
Okay, interesting. I'll hold Grealish, which I'm very happy about, because I've held him since the beginning of the season.
Okay.
If you were me, would you be looking to trade him and try to take advantage of this run of form he's on? Or do you think it's going to carry through?
So look, it's an interesting question because I'll hold Foden. And Grealish is obviously taking that game time out from Foden away at the moment. So, yes, is he on enough? Would you say Grealish has been on enough form to have owned that place? Or is Pep forced to try and get Grealish to form and play him because of the price tag? What's your thoughts there? Is he, in terms of tarnishing Foden's game time?
Yeah, look, it's very tough because Pep's always had a reputation of, playing the form players. Guys do tend to come right in their second season, and he's a very emotionless coach when it comes to that. Whoever's suiting his gameplay the most at the time is going to be the one who gets the nod, and seemingly that's Grealish at the moment. But at the same time, he has come on and changed the game twice, so there is room to just have that option as well if you want to play Foden in some form. So I would definitely be open to try and poke around.
Who would you be looking for? I mean, if you were looking to trade a Grealish right now, what would you be going after?
Yeah, look, it's tough because there's so many good players who are just either injured or not on any kind of form. Like Jared Bowen, like why would I even consider taking that risk at the moment?
You'd rather have Grealish.
James Maddison is injured. I don't know how long Gabriel Jesus is going to be out for. Like these, every time I see a player that I think is interesting, I'm just like, no, wow, it's just not. It's an unnecessary risk right now, And that's been the problem this season. No one's been consistently, except for Haaland again, and Kane, who's not getting enough credit from like a fantasy perspective, and Trippier. Those are your three. Outside of those three, who's been consistently good for the whole season?
Yeah, look, you're right. There's no one that really comes to me. I would actually say Saka. I think Saka has been consistently good from beginning to this point right now. You know, Odegaard had a slower start to the season. He's now found some incredible form. And I think Martinelli, I think it's 5 goals in his last 10 games. So, you know, he's in and around there. But, you know, I think Saka's really, really come into his own. We saw probably more than glimpsed of in the previous season. I mean, I think all three of us called Saka the midfielder to watch in our preseason videos this year, and it seems like we've been proven right there. So I'd add Saka to that list as well.
Do you know who I think are quite interesting options? Is if you look at Brentford are showing that they are a solid mid-table Premier League team. Maybe a little bit better than that, depending on what happens with Ivan Toney, right? And what's interesting is like, very often teams perform very well in their, well, not very often, but like often what will happen is a team will perform well in their first season in the Premier League. And then in their second season, they really, like the league catches up with it. You know, teams figure them out, the quality like isn't there. That's kind of been the opposite with them. You know, they've gotten better this season than they were last season. And there's been a few players lying around who are playing well, who are probably available, you know, Jensen tends to float in that waiver wire quite a lot. And every time he gets game time, De Silva seems to get something. So I think those guys are well worth a look. I actually picked up Rico Henry before he got an injury. They kept a clean sheet, so the points would have been there if he had played. I think Brentford are a team to really start like looking at some of their players. I picked up Mbuemo, which has been great for me. There's some interesting options out at Brentford at the moment.
I mean, even those 2 games that recently where we saw Ivan Toney not even play, I mean, Brentford didn't even look like they missed him.
Yeah. Definitely looked like they were happy to have him back there.
100%. But it kind of shows, you know, they're not that one-man Ivan Toney team. He gives them that extra X factor, but without him, they can still play that type of football they want to play.
Yeah, 100%.
So there's
a couple of interesting... Yeah.
There's a player that caught my eye this weekend. In fact, 2 players that very much caught my eye in the same game this weekend. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the Leeds Villa game.
No, I didn't actually.
So from the Leeds perspective, Wilfred Gnonto. Unbelievable little player.
He is quality. He is a good player.
To me, definitely broken himself into that first team. He gives Leeds a nice burst of power running down that left wing. And more than likely a player that's available in free markets, waivers, the works. Definitely someone to look out for. And the other one in the same game, a new signing, Villa's new signing, Alex Moreno. They picked him up from Real Betis. And Lucas Dean is probably the player that's going to make way for him. This guy just took to the Premier League first game and completely shined. I mean, 5 goals and 3 assists from that wing-back position. And, really looks sharp. So, probably, again, another player who's in waivers and free markets as he's just arrived. And the fact that Lucas Dean is injured means he had to be rushed straight into the team, and I think it's going to be a real challenge for Dean to get back into the squad now.
Okay, so that's a nice pickup.
2 nice players to look out.
There should also be some Wolves players to be picked up. I wouldn't pick them up for the next 2 game weeks. They've got City and Liverpool coming up. But then they do have a pretty decent run of Southampton, Bournemouth, Fulham. Those are tough games this season, but the defense is still...
That Liverpool game, though, is the FA Cup replay tomorrow night?
No, that's
they're playing Liverpool twice in a short space of time.
If I'm not mistaken. But one team who does have a nice run of fixtures is Brighton. Okay. Now, one thing that's been made a lot of over the last couple of days is with Trossard seemingly out of the team, Solly March is playing like quite advanced, and he's been on a bit of a tear lately. So that's been quite widely spoken about. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be picked up in all waivers. But it is a nice run of games. Is there anyone from that Brighton team you would consider popping in your team if you have a spot?
So I actually did pick one up, Evan Ferguson. He's played 4 games, and those 4 games have come in and around this period where Trossard has been not playing. And Ferguson got 2 goals and 2 assists in those for 4 games. So pretty excited to have him in our squad. But I saw today that the manager said that he doesn't want Trossard to leave the club. He just wants a better attitude and wants to get him back into the team. Whether that's a statement to increase the price, saying there's no desperate sale, which only seems to be the case in these times. Once you blow out with the manager, it's pretty hard to come back, especially when the team's playing so well without you. So on that note, if you are a Trossard holder, what would you be doing right now?
I was going to bring this up. I was going to ask this question. I think I would have to hold him in the hopes that he goes to another Premier League club. But, obviously depending on how your league works, if you are able to pick up new players coming into the league, I wouldn't hold him without being flexible if the right player came along. Right, so that's the way I would take it. I would hold him just and follow, obviously, the transfer window news to see if there's any links. But I would definitely be holding him, keeping an eye on the news, but keeping an eye on the waiver wire to see if there was anything worth taking the punt on. One thing that is worth just saying is that Brighton defenders are always a good option, but Sanchez is a pretty average goalkeeping option simply because the defense is so solid that he doesn't have to make that many saves. He doesn't really get save points. He doesn't really get bonus points. But I mean, the clean sheet is good enough on its own. But if you are holding a goalkeeper who does get decent points, I wouldn't be looking to bring Sanchez in if he's available. Anyone else you'd like to close off with that you think could have a decent run to the end of the season, might be worth trading for, might be worth looking out for?
Look, there's a few new players that come into the league. I mean, Chelsea have just gone crazy with signings. Don't really know how they fit everyone into the squad, but the new boy they signed. I mean, we got to wait and see how he takes to the Premier League. €100 million. That's a lot of money for a youngster. We've seen United got a new striker. I don't know if you would rush to pick up there. Look,
I would definitely pick him up if I was holding. If you're in a position where you just weren't able to pick up any strikers, and you're sitting with someone like Mopé. If you're sitting with someone like Neil Mopé, I would definitely do it.
Let's say you're sitting with Martial.
Yeah. If I'm sitting with Martial, probably not. Ooh.
No, is it Weghorst?
Weghorst, yeah.
Weghorst. He's just come in. It is a loan deal, so they want to kind of see what they can get out of him. I mean, Martial hasn't really shot the lights out, has he?
He hasn't, but Ten Hag has been getting the most out of players, so you obviously want to see if he can do the same with Martial, because whenever he is in a good run of form, he is a very good player. So I think you still want to give him game time. I do think that Weghorst is going to get a decent amount of game time because you're not going to start him in the big games. I wouldn't think personally, but when you want a little bit something extra, stick a big man up front. He's a really good option, but he needs game time to be able to have the sharpness to do that. So he's definitely a pickup. I think he's going to get consistent game time. He is the perfect sub to bring on when you 1 or 2-0 up and you want to drop Eriksen maybe a bit deeper. You can take someone off, bring him on, just stick him up front. Everyone can drop in. So I think he's well worth a pickup.
Sure. Last player I'll quickly mention, João Felix, I thought he looked excellent. I thought he looked like Chelsea's best player. Yes, he's red carded right now, but it's worth even picking him up to hold him for the next 2 games, let it run out, and I think you'll have a player for the rest of the season who is going to get involved in goals and assists.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see with all the players they've brought in. But Ange, that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you so much, brother.
Cool.
Thank you for listening.
Good luck with the rest of your game week.
Yeah, I've got to take full down.
Yeah.
So
we're rooting for you.
It's looking good.
We're rooting for you. Cool. Let's see how we go.
Shot, brother. Till next time. Thanks for listening.